So my name's Frankie. I'm originally from Staffordshire, and 3 years ago I moved up to Chester to university where I study theology. I've been a Christian my whole life, but I think I never really truly understood the meaning of being a Christian until I was around 12, 13. I'd always tell everyone I was a Christian, but I don't think I'd necessarily know how to live it out properly. And so I remember being around 12 or 13 and beginning to really question who God was and what his purpose was for my life, and thinking a bit more about how I could show Jesus to my friends. And that's when I really started to read the Bible more and listening to worship music more, and I made some really great Christian friends I'm still friends with today. And I think that was the very beginning of my faith. And then when I was 15, I got baptised in my church, and from then it just completely transformed my life and the way that I choose to live. I'd reflect on what I do and what I say more. Through reading the Bible, I'd learn more about Jesus' character and how I could be more like him. I think my faith's defined by choosing to follow Jesus no matter what. And when you're making a decision, it's always consulting Jesus first, and it's having that constant friendship with him. So the core values of my faith, I'd say first and foremost it's prayer. And I'm a little bit different to some people, I guess, because when I was around 14, I discovered worship dancing. And so for me personally, obviously I pray as the average Christian would, but I really enjoy prayer dancing as well, and kind of putting on some worship music and just really connecting with God in that way, and expressing my emotions to him, whether it's happiness, whether it's fear or sadness. It's just kind of releasing all my inner insecurities, I guess, up to him. I think for me, a key part of my faith is fellowship. All my best friends are Christians, my partner's a Christian, my family are Christian, and I know that not every Christian gets that, has that. But for me, it's so integral to who I am because I've got them praying for me, and if I have any problems, I always go to those people to get prayer and to get advice and things like that. So I guess it's that accountability is so core to my faith. One of the key things that Jesus does in the Bible is when he gets tempted by the devil, and he constantly is just no, I don't want to do that, no, I'm not going to do that, no, I'm not going to do that. And I constantly reflect on that passage and think, wow, if I can do that in everything, if I can always say no to temptation, the ways of the world, then how much more am I going to be like Jesus? And so I think it's just the fact that he's not afraid to believe in God, he's not afraid to be different, and that's what we're called to do as Christians, I believe. We're called to be that change and be that difference and be that light in the world. I'm a core believer in attending church. I think going to church or and the Christian Union at university and having cell groups and different fellowship groups, that gives you that equips you for what it is to teach about Jesus and to be like Jesus. One thing that I've learnt from being at university is not being afraid to take a stance and be different. So if all my friends are going to go out and drink, it's occasionally going out with them but not drinking the same amount as them, or actually being actually I don't want to go out and drink tonight, and being firm in that and not feeling less of a person because I've chosen not to do that. When I think of Jesus, I just think of joy, and that's what I choose to do every day. Obviously people have their down moments, but yeah, being like Jesus is joy, I think. So when you go to university, I think it's really challenging in certain situations that you're put in. So I remember in my first year, I was in a house with a lot of non-Christians, and they all like the drinking culture and things like that. And for me, I really struggled to start off with because I'm just so different to that. But it was learning to adapt, and they'd understand where I was coming from and I'd understand where they were coming from, and it was not having that judgment and just loving them where they're at. And I'd always talk about Jesus anyway and be oh, I'm going to church today, or and I'd invite my friends to places, my non-Christian friends and my Christian friends, and I think just living out my faith as much as I can around them, being open and honest about it. Uni's such a busy time of life. It's so nice sometimes to just take a break from studying and just go and have a prayer walk. And so I live in Chester where I go to university, and there's a canal, so I often will just go and walk down the canal, and I think there's something so powerful about just walking past someone and being and just praying for them when you walk past them. You don't know their situation, but just praying on behalf of them, because you don't know, what they're going through. And so I love to do that. But I also love to just keep my ears open, and if I hear one of my friends talk about something they're going through, sometimes I openly say to them, can I pray for you? Other times, I will just pray for them without them kind of knowing, when I'm praying in my private environment. But yeah, I think it's just being attentive to people's well-beings and to what they're going through, and being selfless in wanting to pray for them and with them. During exam time, I think you're always inevitably going to have the feeling of dread and of, oh, what if I miss the mark and I don't do as well as I want to? And I've just handed in my dissertation, and I definitely had this feeling where I just felt like I could have done more, or I felt like, I couldn't have given it any more than I did, but I still was like, oh man, I just wish that I could have added in that extra scholar there, or, different things like that. But I just had to keep reminding myself that it is all in God's plan, and I worked as hard as I could have done, and I prayed through it, so He's gonna get me to where I need to get, and for His plan. And that is what's gonna happen. As long as you try your best and you pray through it, God will get you where you need to be. Gossip is a massive part of uni culture, and it is really difficult to kind of separate yourselves from that, because I think it's so different to any part of life. If you're working or if you're at school or whatever, you always have that home environment to go to where you can just be completely yourself. But at uni, you're living with these people day in and day out, so you can't really separate yourselves from certain people, and it is a full-on environment. But I think it's making that conscious decision to not gossip, or me and my friends have this way of thinking where there's a line between what's gossiping and what's getting advice about something, and it is a very, very thin line, but it's just finding out what's appropriate for you and how far is too far for you. And yeah, I think if you pray about it and you pray for love, then it will just happen. It's not easy, obviously we all mess up with gossip, but yeah, it's working towards being just how Jesus is, and yeah, loving people wholeheartedly. Some other big problems that you can face at uni is comparing yourself to others. We're all in different stages of life, and I was shocked when I went to uni at how different it was to how I initially thought, because at school, I don't know if everyone experienced this, but for me, if you got a result, like a maths test result or something, everyone would be like, oh, what did you get? Everyone would compare. At uni, it is different, because people don't necessarily say to me oh, what grade did you get? But it's an internal thing where it's you see someone else in class who's giving really great answers, and you're like, oh no, I'm not as good as them, I'm not as wise as them. And it is a challenge, it's horrible comparing yourself to other people. And I can't lie, I still struggle with it now. But I think it's about lifting it up to God and handing that over to Him and being like, look, I'm really struggling with this. I keep comparing myself to so-and-so. And for me, whenever I pray that prayer, He always offers me peace. God's taught me that living out my faith is something not to be afraid of. I think the thought of it's really scary, but when you actually choose to do it, people respect you so much more for being who you are. To be honest, uni is such a great place to live out your faith, because you go there, you're not going to know that many people, if anyone at all, and it's a clean slate. You can act the way that you want to act, and you can be honest to yourself and true to yourself. If you're starting university in September, I think you need to be authentic about the way you act. There's no point going there and acting in a way that you're not. I think it's obviously making that conscious decision every day to choose to live out your life in the way that Jesus would want you to. And so I think get stuck into a church straight away, go to CU, meet those Christian friends, build those strong key networks, because that is definitely integral to supporting you in your faith. I think without that, you're going to really, really struggle. And then choosing to make friends with people who aren't Christians as well, and really building on those friendships, getting to know people so deeply, and yeah, just loving them and teaching them a little bit more about Jesus if you can. I really, really want to be intentional about making friendships with people in the workplace, just as I have at uni. I don't want to go into a workplace and just, you know, go in, get my money and then come out again. Like, I really want to get to know people well, and build those friendships with them so that I can tell them about Jesus and who he is, and invite them to events that church put on, invite them to church. That's what I really, really want to do. And I think I'm just going to pray about it so much that God gives me those opportunities to be able to make those friendships and build those bridges and build that opportunity to explore Jesus with them. Faith lived out means to me being who Jesus wants you to be. So not looking at anybody else and thinking, oh, so-and-so is doing that, so I need to be like that to be a good Christian. It's about just opening up to God and being like, God, what do you want me to be? Who do you want me to be? And then from that, kind of making decisions together. So I know that, so I've been looking for jobs now after uni, and I've always been like praying into it and being like, God, do you want me here? If you don't, then just, I don't want to feel peaceful about it, and that kind of thing. And it actually, like, that is how I felt. You know, I went for a job interview and I didn't feel peaceful about it, so I knew that it wasn't God's best for me. Yeah, trusting in him and making friendships, knowing Jesus on a really deep level, and then being able to share that with people you love.